So, as a thought experiment, I went on to ChatGPT to see if it could do something about my CV, and really didn't. There was some interesting things that it did, but generally speaking, it didn't really do anything different from what I've been doing anyway. So, I kind of the argument that I'm competing against people who are using ChatGPT for the job applications, I'm not sure it's a good argument. Yes, for the comments, I found that with one job in particular, they wanted long descriptions of why you think you're good for the role, and you just take your bits and you dump it into ChatGPT, and it spits out a description of why you're good. But again, it's nothing really different from what I would have written anyway, so I don't know how useful that is. We will see. One of the jobs I applied for, only one, as an experiment, I used ChatGPT on, and all the rest I did myself. But I wanted to see if the ChatGPT gets me a response. That's one of the experiments. But the other thing that I did while I was there, I was curious to see if my old blog had been scraped, because I assumed it has been at this point. It's been around for 10 years. There was a period where I was posting a lot. But generally speaking, it's pretty dormant. It's still there because I like to keep things up there. And when I started posting my stories, one of the comments from my friends was, "Aren't you afraid that people are going to steal your ideas?" And I was kind of like, I don't really care. I got plenty of ideas. It's fine. But it has occurred to me that even someone as no name as me, maybe I could type into ChatGPT, write a story in the style of me or the style of my website, because they seem to be two slightly different things. So I did anyway, and yeah, so I got something that came out when I first typed in the style of the Diary of the Short Disturbances. I got, even the fact that a lot of the stuff is scripts, it came out in script format as well, which was quite interesting. So it clearly had a deep look at the website, and it wrote something that would that kind of got what I write, especially back then as well. And I typed in my actual name, and I thought, okay, let's write a 500-word story in the style of me, and 1,000-word as well. So I wanted a bit of a comparison. And what was interesting was how ChatGPT had actually analysed me and come up with a description of my style and what I do. And it identified things that actually never occurred to me. And I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess I kind of do that. It was like getting a third person to look at stuff. So I found that really interesting. But when it came to actually writing something, it felt like an impersonation of me, very much like it understood the mechanics of what I was doing, but didn't. There was like a lack of soul of humanity in it. There was it felt artificial, like an artificial version of me. And what it reminded me of was the scene in The Fly, the 1986 film by David Cronenberg, when Jeff Goldblum's character Seth Brundle gives Veronica, his girlfriend reporter, some steak that he's put through the matter transporter pods, and she eats the good steak and the bad steak, and he asks for feedback, and she's like, "Oh no, it just tastes artificial, like not real." And the computer, Jeff Goldblum's character, goes on to say that he hasn't taught the computer the art or to appreciate the flesh, to really, like, it's just replicating the flesh. He doesn't understand flesh. And I think, at least in my case, that's what ChatGPT did. It got the beats. It understands probably better than I do how I construct my story, but it doesn't understand what I was doing. You know what I mean? It doesn't fully grasp what it is to be flesh. And it's a fundamental hollowness, almost like it was my writing but with shrink wrap around it, or my writing but taken to someone else to take out all the rude bits, or take out the edges, you know, smooth it, make it a bit more palatable. There's no edginess to it, I guess. Very weird experience. I'm not going to post that up here for you to see. Maybe I will at some point, but very strange experience, and completely I've been scraped. Like, I am now a thing in ChatGPT that you can write in the style of me. You can write stories in my style, whatever that style is. And ChatGPT knows what the style of the Diary of Short Disturbances is. Yeah, I can maybe use that as inspiration for like the about section, maybe. But yeah, there's a fundamental lack in all of this. It's reconstructing using points or points of data. What you do is has an image or a memory of who that person is that it's trying to copy, and it can just copy what it wants, and it will do a pale, insipid, unfeeling. It doesn't understand the flesh. It doesn't love the flesh. And maybe it needs to be taught to understand and appreciate the flesh. And maybe it's something that it can never grasp onto. And then there was, after all of this kind of esoteric thinking about what I had done and what I had just experienced, I realized that when the dust settles, when everything calms down, people, like they do with CG images of people's faces and stuff, there's an uncanniness to it. There's kind of like an uncanny valley to the writing. And maybe we will learn, it's obvious to me what it is as a creative person. Maybe it's not, won't be so obvious to someone else, but maybe to a fan it's obvious, and it will encourage people to seek the source, because it's like art. It's artificial, just like the meat, the steak that was sent through the Meta transport pods, the Veronica Air. It doesn't taste right. It doesn't understand the flesh, what it is to be human. It's not creating. It's assembling, recreating, an assemblage of ideas that it thinks is you, but it doesn't understand what it is to be human. So how could it recreate a piece of work in the style of me? Long live the flesh.